Hour number 2, 102.5 The Game, Chase and Big Joe. Time to talk some NFL, some Titans with our man Tim Hasselbeck from ESPN and also the head coach at Innsworth. Tim, what's up? How you doing?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. Happy birthday, sir, from belated, but happy birthday. I know it was yesterday.
Thank you. What do you think? I look pretty good for 58?
Well, here we go, Tim. Our Dr. Crane has from celebrity birthdays yesterday. Please enjoy.
Chase McCabe, how old today is one Tim Hasselbeck?
Our
Today's
man.
Tim Hasselbeck's birthday.
Oh, we gotta text him. Happy birthday.
Yep.
I'm gonna say Tim is 52.
53.
He's 48, and tag this so you guys think he's older than what he is.
Sorry, Tim. I was thinking Matthew because he's older, so I apologize, Tim.
Sorry, Tim.
Dude, 52? Wait a second. Like, Matthew's not even 52. He's older than me. Like, that's hurtful.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, Tim.
Do I really look 52? Like,
No,
I mean,
no, you don't. You don't at all. So Matthew's 50?
he's 50. And so, like, I mean, that, I'm not going to lie, that wounded me a little bit. I will say this, like, one thing about losing your hair when you're younger, like I was taking my helmet off in college and there was a lot of hair showing up in the helmet. And I was like, oh, this is not, so the comb over was like, mid-20s. And then, then it was fire it before it quits on you kind of thing. So basically from like 30 on, I'm going to have the same hairstyle. So I do feel like that helps, right? Like, shouldn't that help from like 50 to like 65?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
I would think so too.
Well, I mean, I said 33, so they wasn't clipped on that right there.
Yeah,
just letting you know.
I know you didn't say 33, but I joke. I said 58 because it's like, well, if you tell people like, hey, I'm 50, like, oh, you look good for 58. It's like, yeah, because I'm 48. That's why.
Oh, yes. Oh, that is good. Well, we hope it was a good birthday, and I apologize for saying you were 52. So,
man, it's going to take me a while to forgive you.
I know. Let's talk football though. I've been intrigued, and we haven't really brought him up with you a ton, but I saw that Diego Pavia is going to visit with the Panthers. He's obviously doing the Gruden stuff, on Barstool. What's kind of your thoughts on him as a potential NFL quarterback?
I think that a lot of people are going to look at him and love the football player. I think they're just going to see his production at the college level in a super athletic conference, which, is going to produce a bunch of draft picks and has produced a bunch of people that, that are playing in the National Football League. So I think, well, look, in some ways, like Vandy, part of their attraction to him is saying, like, wait a second, we saw this guy play against Auburn, at New Mexico State. Like, how would he do here? And so I think there's going to be a lot of people that, appreciate the football player that he is. I don't think there is going to be teams that look at him and say, like, he someday can be our starting quarterback. I don't think anyone's going to see that type of potential in him. And I think that when people say, like, okay, but is there a Taysom Hill opportunity for him? I think the testing numbers are going to really work against him. So, it's kind of a long-winded way for me to say I think it's very likely that he goes undrafted. I could see somebody in the final 2 rounds saying this guy's just too good of a football player for us not to find out what he could do for us. And so, maybe he's a 6th, 7th round draft pick, and, who knows how a team sees him. But I think if he were to have tested better, because if you look up the testing numbers for a guy like Taysom Hill, I mean, they're freakish. So I think that it would be a different conversation.
Do you think that he may get advised of switch positions? There was always talk with Tebow, should he play a H-back role, something like that. Do you see that with him, or do you think the size could play against him?
So here's what I'd say. So Tebow's obviously significantly bigger, right? So I think that would be the first point. I think the thing with Tebow is, and it's a little bit like what I would say about like Taysom Hill, like Tebow couldn't run like Taysom Hill. Tebow was physical, but, I don't think anybody really saw him as kind of like a fast twitch athlete. So I think a position move is unlikely just because of the size, where Tebow was significantly bigger, probably aligned more in terms of, how, some off the ball tight ends, their stature. I think that's what, Tebow, matched up much more with that. What I could see somebody doing is, checking him out as a quarterback and feeling like he could play in certain situations, short yardage, third and, short, thing where he could be a player in that environment where you could trust him in the quick game as a passer. You could definitely runner. He could make decisions in the run game, to give the ball rather than to keep it. There would have to be a lot of real estate that you invest in that in terms of practicing and things like that. And that just seems like a path teams won't be likely to go down.
Tim, let me ask you this. Say he gets to the 7th round and Pavia is still there, but he likes that maybe he could go to the Lions, right? And then but the Lions aren't going to draft him, and there might be another team that drafts him. Can his agent say, listen, don't draft him. We want to sign with the Lions. That 7th round, is it better to be a 7th round pick no matter where you go, or an undrafted guy getting the pick where you think you have the best opportunity to play? I personally think getting drafted goes with you the rest of your life, and it's a cool thing, but also you want to play. So would you rather be a UFA, or would you rather be drafted in 7th round at a place where you might not play?
I think and I've heard a lot of people, talk about this like, oh, hey, like you'd rather the choice, right? So you don't get drafted, and now, you can look at the roster of all these teams and you choose which one's the best fit. I would disagree and push back on that. These teams only have so many draft picks. They hold them in high regard, and they're super valuable. Did the teams cut 7th round draft picks every year? Of course they do. But you only get so many picks. If in a team gets 7 and they're willing to use one on you, like that means that they like you. That means there's some level of investment. There are people in the building that think you have a chance to help that football team. I think it is always better to get drafted than to be an undrafted guy, and now you're trying to assess which place is the right place for you. So I feel strongly about that. Having been an undrafted guy, who was quickly cut before training camp, it's just the path to opportunity when you're undrafted. There are a lot of things that need to fall your way for it to work out.
Yeah, I agree. I think getting drafted would be really special to do all that. Do you think when Pavia last night was on the Gruden quarterback show and all that, can a guy hurt or help himself by going on there?
Oh, for sure. I think that the Gruden stuff is, when you look at these evaluations that, guys like me do on TV, by and large, they're incomplete evaluations because, in my estimation, a massive part of the quarterback evaluation process is the ability to sit down and talk with a guy, like hear his explanation of things, hear him describe what he knows or what he's looking at or what he thought. and then also understand what he's like in a quarterback meeting room. Can he explain something? Can he digest something and then, be ready to go execute it? All of the different things, that you would, that you just don't like in my position, on TV, I don't get that opportunity. I don't have combine interviews. I don't have pro day interviews, with the guys to do that stuff. And so the Gruden stuff is as close that you can get to some of the interactions that you get in a quarterback meeting room. And I've seen those cripple quarterbacks where, a coach, ask a guy to draw something on the board or explain something or call a play, and guys just can't do it. Well, you have no shot if you can't do that. Never mind to operate it, on a football field. So, and then what you can see is how much does the guy take command of an environment like that? How would he be in our quarterback meeting room? So I think that I think Gruden does a great job with those. I think people have tried to recreate them and have not done a good job of recreating it. And I think that it's actually good and entertaining stuff that quite frankly kind of goes on a little bit in some of the quarterback interview process.
Now, I have no idea whether this happens or not, but is that unedited? I mean, he's not going to put something out. Gruden would not put something out there to make somebody look bad. I don't think. Everyone seems to do well and has a good grasp of everything. I don't know how the editing process works of man, this guy was really – nothing comes to mind. I know there are examples like this guy didn't know some of this or some of that, but overall, I don't think Gruden's going to do something to make somebody look bad.
Well, no, but I forget who the quarterback was when he did one with him a few years ago. It was tell me the play. And a lot of these spread offense, up-tempo offenses, they got these one-word plays. It's just oh, yeah, we'll give the line of scrimmage, got a little Toledo. And it's that means this. And then I clap my hands. And so, in some ways for that, not that NFL teams don't know this, but
right.
In some ways, for that, it's oh, okay, this is going to be a big learning curve. Because now you got to walk into a huddle, call two plays, at the same time because you're packaging a play for a third down scenario, and then you're going to get up to the line of scrimmage. You're going to use this dummy cadence. You're going to go you're going to go through all of this. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
That's there's a huge leap from that to what you do in the National Football League. So I've seen guys I think not look great in doing some of this stuff with Gruden. And then I've seen guys where I'm that guy's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive for a guy his age in that environment.
He is Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst. We'll have more with him coming up next on Chasing Big Joe, 102.5 The Game. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5 The Game, continuing our conversation with Tim Hasselbeck from ESPN and the head coach at Innsworth here on this Tuesday. What do you think is going to happen with this Dexter Lawrence situation?
It's interesting. My guess is I think ultimately because holdouts and stuff, have, in this current environment are just so expensive that, I think it eventually gets worked out that he remains with the team.
So you think it would behoove the Giants to keep him and not try to trade him?
Yeah, I think listen, good players leaving is always no one wants good players to leave. I mean, just look, especially guys that are in your front. Think about, Myles Garrett wanted out of Cleveland. It's so hard to let good players go. Look at what it was going to have to take to get Max Crosby out of, Las Vegas. I think when you have good players, even when they're unhappy in your front, I think teams, for the most part, find ways, even when the teams aren't good, to work it out. I mean, look, Jeffrey Simmons here is a good example. The team has not been as good as, Jeffrey Simmons would like. I think there's probably been times, not that he's said this, but there have been times that he's been frustrated and, being moved to a better team he probably would have been okay with. But I don't think anyone's ever really considered it. When you have really good players in your front, it's unusual for them to get traded. It's why like the Micah Parsons trade, was so unusual, right? And it's like people couldn't believe that it happened. So, I mean, without knowing any details of how mad he is, what he wants, what the Giants would be willing to do, I just think that when you have good players in your front, teams are really, hesitant to trade them.
Tim, I got a question here from a guy named Leland. Says, Diego Pavia, if he does not get drafted and his options are the CFL and the UFL sticks around for a while, what would be better for a quarterback like Pavia, the CFL or the UFL?
I would say just based on track record in terms of historically, the CFL has helped. Right. I mean, obviously it's been a while, but there are guys that have gone up and played there that did get an opportunity. And I think there's an element of going and playing there. Your commitment oftentimes can be longer. Mm-hmm. And so guys that do it for multiple years, it's a signal to, the NFL, like, look, this guy is going to do whatever it takes. The UFL and those types of opportunities, they're shorter, and in the off season, they're at a time where, you miss a lot of, you miss things that are going on here. So to get signed at the end of that season, I think is a little bit different. So, that would be my initial reaction to it. And then let me be clear on I do think he's going to end up in someone's camp.
Right.
And I do think that playing in the preseason, I think he'll play well. It's just a matter of, like, just take this as the example. Like, the Panthers are a good example of, who's visiting them. Look, they have their starter. He is a guy, their starter is a guy that's not a real big guy. And so would they ever say, like, look, 3rd and 2 or shorter, you're going to play quarterback? If you're going to go in, and we could have power read stuff, we could have option stuff, and we would trust you in the quick game to be able to pass in the quick game. Like, we're going to do that. Like, could you do that? Like, maybe you could. It's some outside of the box thinking, have to take some creative coaching, but would they be better in that environment than playing Bryce Young? I think so. I think you could be. It's just a matter of if a team is going to allocate the time, energy, and resources to do that.
No, I think it's a great thing. Also, if you go the CFL, I mean, the football is a little fatter, as I discovered a long time ago in the CFL. Does that help or hurt you when because they throw the ball 80 times a game. Would that help you at all, hurt you at all if you try to get back to the NFL? Because the way football is?
I'll say this. I'll say this about passing up there. It's cold, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm breaking news on that. But So, when Doug Flutie went up there and played, that's a 5'9.5" quarterback going up and playing in brutal conditions in Canada. And look, I think his experience in Canada gave people the confidence that he could play in a city like Buffalo. And so there is a difference playing in bad elements. And so, in a passing league up there in a rough climate and cold weather, and quite frankly, the fact that his passing is, lags behind in terms of, how he would compare to other quarterbacks. Look, that's why something like that would not be a bad move for him.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. On another quarterback level, this whole Aaron Rodgers thing, he's going to let the Steelers know if he's coming back. Why are they letting him keep the team hostage? Why are we doing this again?
It's because I think he's still probably one of the best 32 starting quarterbacks on the planet. I mean, that's why, they're entertaining this. Now, I will say this. I think last year, Aaron dictated Pittsburgh's plans. This year, I could see Pittsburgh taking a quarterback. And so I think Aaron is a backup plan for Pittsburgh now. I think if things go a certain way, I could see Pittsburgh taking a quarterback. If they don't, then I think we'll say, like, all right, well, Aaron doesn't have other options. He would be willing to play here. Let's run it back with him. I've been on record as saying I think it's time to turn the page. And, part of the reason I say it is, look, go into the season, draft Carson Beck at some point. Go into the season with Will Howard and Carson Beck. And then if it doesn't work out with those guys, you're probably drafting so low that you'll get a quarterback of your future or potentially of your future in next year's draft.
Tim,
bringing Aaron back, you're going to be picking outside of the top 16 picks because
right.
you're going to be good enough, and that doesn't help you.
Steelers should hire you as GM, Tim.
Well, they shouldn't do that, but I think what happens is like no one wants to endure. Listen, everyone thinks that they're going to have more than 1 year, but Aaron Glenn nearly got fired in New York,
right? And
so going into a season with horrible quarterback play, Mike McCarthy's got his dream job. He doesn't want to lose it in year one.
No, you're exactly right. We're all like hoping the Titans take Jeremiyah Love at 4. But at 2 is the Jets, and at 3 it's the Cardinals, and they got a lot of dance partners. Do you see him getting to 4, Tim? I don't, because I think he'll be really good for the football team, and I just think that rug's going to be swept down underneath everybody. Do you think there's a chance he could get to 4, or do we not even know?
I think there's a good chance he gets to 4. Part of the reason I say that is, when you look at a lot of these mock drafts that come out, and I think it's important, and not that everyone's, perfect on these things, because they're not, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. But, a lot of these mock drafts, it's interesting. There's the evaluation of the players and maybe how the evaluator truly feels about them. But there's also a lot of talking to other teams. There's a lot of information shared. And I think when guys put together these mock drafts, they're not blind mock drafts. They're with information of people that are involved in this. And I've seen some where Love gets. I think I saw him get to, was it 12
wow.
or 10? I think he got to 10. So he got all the way to 10. So, and this was one that I think ESPN had done with a number of our guys that are involved in it, so it was Mel, but, it was other guys that are involved in the process. It's like, wow, he got all the way to 12 or 10. I think it was 10. So I do think there's a chance he's still there at 4 because there's probably enough information out there that, people are, so this run on defensive ends is going to happen, early. And here's the other thing. I feel like in this mock draft I'm referring to, I think they had Bailey going to the Titans, right?
Oh, yeah.
Not only do they have him getting to 4, but they have, the Titans selecting the edge rusher.
It depends on what mock draft you look at. You've seen Bailey, you've seen Bain, you've seen Reese, you've seen Love. I mean, so it's kind of one of those 4 guys going to the Titans, depending on who's making the mock draft.
And don't you feel like it's been more Bailey than anyone else?
Probably, yeah. I feel like because
that surprised me a little bit that Bain hasn't been there more.
Yeah, well, and I see him kind of moving towards the end of the top 10. Is what I've seen, but I haven't seen quite a few people say Love. So,
well, here's part of what I'll say on Love is after. Now it's a while ago, but look, Adam's the best in the business. Adam is the absolute best in the business. In draft season, there's a lot of misinformation and stuff like that. Adam was pretty strong about, I don't want to say it was a month ago, but a few weeks ago, where he's like, I don't see the Titans taking Love. It was like a pretty direct thing. Now, I don't know if he's softened that or anything like that, but that to me is newsworthy when he says something as definitive as that. So, look, I think it could be Love. I think Love makes a ton of sense. I think Love makes sense to the Titans. I think it makes sense to the Commanders. I think it makes sense to the Giants. I think it makes sense to those 3 teams in a very, very big way. So, when Adam makes a comment like that gets my attention.
Are you saying that Love makes sense to the Titans because the Titans simply just, can use more offensive weapons, or do you think Love makes sense for Cam Ward?
I think it makes sense for Cam Ward. And running back is a position I truly believe you can find outside of the first round. Just look at the league right now. There's plenty of productive players that you didn't come into the league as first rounders. And then there are some that came into the league as first rounders that aren't that great. Then there are the select few that they came in the first round and you're like, holy cow, this guy's going to change our franchise. Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, guys like that. And I think there's an element of Love that he's so physically talented and he's skill set as somebody that you don't just have to hand the ball to him, that you can say, we can get this guy 20 touches. It's easy to get your running back touches. We can get this guy 20 touches. To have somebody touch the ball 20 times in your offense, that's a massive impact. It's touching the ball more than anybody other than your quarterback. And so that's why I think for a young quarterback, a running back that is elite can change a lot.
Isn't it funny how we've spent the last 10 years devaluing running backs, and yet now it's like, we want Jeremiyah Love. Listen, I tell people,
have to have one.
We will never devalue running backs. They're part of the game forever. As much as they try to get rid of them, they're always going to be there.
But you can't overvalue the ones that aren't special.
Yes, correct.
That to me ends up being the difference. Not to someone have shrapnel here, but Donald Brown. It was late first round, but Donald Brown was drafted in the first round. The Colts were on a run of it. I think Joseph Adai was drafted in the first round. It was really? Did you need to? But the special guys, it makes sense. If you're going to draft somebody that's not special at running back in the first round, that to me doesn't make sense. The special player makes sense in spades. It does. So that's what's valuable. What's valuable is the guy that can play longer than most running backs do, the guy that can handle. I think I forget who it was I looked at. I think it was Saquon Barkley. I think Saquon Barkley touched the football about 350 times his rookie season.
Ooh.
Special running backs can do that. So, and look, we would agree probably, Bijan Robinson, that guy's different than other running backs.
Yeah.
So, Christian McCaffrey, because of his versatility, he's different than other running backs, first round. Derrick Henry, we saw it here, defensive end, lane tailback, different than other running backs. But then there are other guys where it's he's good, but I don't know how great he is.
Let me ask real quick for you. I know we're over the thing, but I love talking to you about football. Do you tell your running backs when they're hitting the sideline to get out of bounds or take the contact if they get more yards? And I ask this because I remember when Kiffin was in Knoxville, one of the running backs went out of bounds, and he's like, we always seek contact. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not a big Lane Kiffin fan, but I like that mentality. But also, that's a wear and tear on a running back. So it's a fine line, right?
It is. I think you need to finish runs. I think you need to finish runs. That's what I think you need to do. Now, are there environments where it does make sense for some guys to, take hits off their bodies? In pro football, guys been in the back for a long time, and there's maybe some scenarios where, it makes more sense to fight another day. It is. I'll admit that. But I think the general rule of thumb would be finish runs.
Love it.
And so, that's just, I think there's an element of that makes sense. And by the way, listen, I don't mind you guys keeping me longer because, if I can prove to people at 52 years old that I can finish segments and hits that go longer at my age, then I can finish them, then I'm going to do that. All right?
Well, hey, I'm glad to know that. And by the way, Elizabeth called us and wants to go look at some homes, so we'll let you know what we find.
Yes. Sorry, buddy.
All right. You guys are the best. Good to be on with you.
Thank you, Tim. Happy birthday, man.
See you, fellas.
See ya. Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, and the head coach at Innsbruck. That's pretty good.
I just love pure football talk like that. I mean, that's from the coaches. mindset and from his experience as a quarterback. I love that segment.
Yeah,
man.
no, it's about, and that what he was saying about Love right there. I mean, that's why I wanted to ask that. Is he a fit for the Titans or is he a fit for Cam Ward?
Great question.
And you heard he was very quick to say Cam Ward. We'll react to that and much more. Coming up next, Chasing Big Joe, 102.5 The Game.